Here we go. That's us. Okay, so welcome to Inside the Artist Studio. I just love that. You know what? Krista Hanley decided to name these talks that, and it was right after James Lipton died. Do you remember his Inside the Actors Studio?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those were great. And I'm like, yeah, we can do this. We can do this. Maybe Brad Pitt will actually come on one day. Who knows? Oh my gosh. Okay, December 20th. I cannot believe it is the end of December 2021. I think I was writing about this the other day. Did we just totally skip over October? Like and November? All right, fine, whatever. Maybe it's just me. Okay, today I'm so excited. So we've got Brad Overton calling in from Utah, Rick Young from Colorado, just south of me in Castle Rock, and Carmel Timmons, who used to be near Rick Young, but now is in the wilds of Wyoming. Don't feel bad for her. She actually lives on a golf course. Yeah. It's not really wild out there, wild golfers.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So this is really interesting today because, well, they're all really, really interesting. But we've got Carmel, who is a pencil artist, and who every so often throws a little color our way. Not this year. And we have Rick, who is a landscape painter who's all about color, and Brad, who is just uses the most dynamic color, but he's really about tricking your eye in a way. And well, that's what I think, and humor. We're going to talk to him about that, but we're going to start with Rick. Hello, Rick. I'm shining a spotlight on you. How are you?
I'm doing great. I've been looking forward to the conversation. It was fun last year.
Good. Yeah. Well, and it's even more fun because we get to be with your work in person this year at the Coeur Show.
Yes, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah. Hopefully things will be okay virus wise and all that kind of stuff. But we're just doing what we can. So your work is predominantly landscape, but you're doing something so different with it. And what I'm wondering is, right off the bat, would you just talk about how you developed this style? Because I would equate your style to listening to music.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I after a long period of not doing any painting, doing a little bit of other kinds of art, some cartooning and things like that, and some photography. I got back into painting a little over 20 years ago and took a workshop from an artist in Taos who was all about color, and boy, did that take. I just discovered the joy of color and have been having fun with it ever since. So I guess you could say I use color expressively, maybe more so than naturalistically.
Yeah. Who was the artist?
It was, Lee Gusterson in Taos.
Oh, wow. Nice. Oh, good. So, okay. You don't get to skim by with just saying after not painting for a while. What happened?
Well, I was busy with a career as a high school teacher, teaching art, history, government, religions, all sorts of things, raising a family, climbing a lot of mountains, cross-country ski racing, all sorts of things, and did some editorial cartooning for local newspapers. And then I just, partly it was the experience of my wife and I bought some land down in southern Colorado, almost to New Mexico, and we built our own log cabin there. And that was how I discovered the Southwest and really fell in love with it in a way that inspired me to pick up a paintbrush again after a long hiatus. And I've been having fun with it ever since.
Wow. Hey, I'm gonna do a screen share, but I'm wondering if you would talk a little bit about, what's the best way to put it? It's a lot of artists teach. Some artists just teach workshops, they're just a week
Right.
long or a whatever it is. But there are a lot of artists who also teach for high school, or they teach at the university level. And it's a great way to smooth out like the income. It keeps you in it. But it also kind of saps your energy, right?
It definitely can. I mean, it's very enriching and it's challenging. It's like when I would sit down with students and do some life drawing with them, it's forcing you to, walk the walk. You just can't be talking about it. And that was really good to keep me from getting rusty. But when I was teaching, I was also pretty exhausted, working long weeks, and the painting opportunities were few and far between. So it was hard to really, develop until I retired from teaching about 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
And man, did it become a whole lot easier to grow as an artist once I could do it full time. So the teaching was wonderful and really forced you to grow. But boy, I needed to just be able to throw myself into my art, and that's been great.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of your art, here we go. Let's do a little screen share right here. Did I lose my screen share? I always kind of do goofy stuff like this. Let me see if I can, let me redo screen share. I always think I'm getting good at this, and then no, not at all. Okay.
Is that what you want?
Yeah, this is you, right? Are you seeing you?
Yep.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. Okay, so here's the thing, kind of as a curator, I really want my goal is to have each person's voice just sing out whether you're there or not, right? And I when I first saw your work, and you actually applied to the show, you were one of the few who's applied to the show that I've been able to add to the show, and been able to add maybe isn't quite the right way to put it. But we have hundreds of people apply to the show. And it's a curated show. So people don't always get this. Like some shows are totally juried in every single year. It's a whole new batch. But this show, we really work with artists and try and create a following and really try to sell the work and build the work and be with you as you continue to move and evolve through what you're doing. And so there's not a lot of space each year to add new artists. And last year, you were one of those people that we added, and the audience loved the work. I think it went really well, don't you?
Yeah, I was impressed. I sold most of my pieces and got a lot of really good feedback.
Yeah.
And then similarly, what was that, a week and a half ago, the Young Guns event?
Yep.
That was a blast. It was great talking to all these young art lovers, and I got a lot of great feedback from that, as well as sales.
So what Rick is talking about is we have a preview week, the second week in December, and everything is up, and it's open to the public to come by and see the show quietly. It's really nice. And then that Thursday of that week in the evening, we have Young Guns, and this is for young starting out collectors. Mostly they're 40 and under. And they get first crack at 15 artists' work, and Rick is one of those artists, and they darn near cleaned you out, man. It was kind of fun.
It was real fun.
Yeah. Which tells me that kind of in the world of collecting, a lot of our 40 and under collectors who are starting out really love to be pushed in their vision, and what is art and colorful, or, exaggerating shapes and things like that. They really like that, and almost that there's its own unique story to the work. So that was really wonderful to see. So Rick, let's talk about the actual work that you have in the show. And this one, I have to tell you, of the group, this was one of my favorites when we got it up on the wall, Morning Above the Gorge. And it's a nice big square, 36 inches square. And it is just so vibrant. I'm just going to blow it up here so you can see the brushstrokes and all the wonderful layering. But I wonder if you would talk about the inspiration for this piece.
Well, my paintings are always inspired by actual scenes. I spend a lot of time out on trails or driving back roads with my camera because I begin work with my own photos, not a plein air painter. But on this one, it's the Rio Grande Gorge near Taos. And I spent several hours hiking along the West Rim Trail, which would be the right-hand side of the gorge in this painting. Took a lot of photos, but nothing really, grabbed me. And hiked back to the trailhead, was driving back into where I was staying in Taos, and I crossed the Route 64 bridge. And some of our, listeners, viewers today may have been over that. It's this dramatic highway. It's 650 or more feet above the river, super dramatic. Anyways, I'd spent all this time out hiking, taking intimate shots of the canyon, but nothing was quite right. But then as I drove across the bridge, I glanced over and it's like, yes, that composition, that combination of light and shadow was just what I wanted. So I quick parked on the other side, ran back to almost the middle of the bridge, took some photos, and that's where this came from. And, I guess I'm kind of a purist. I prefer to work harder for my photos and be doing it on foot. But in this case, from right off the highway bridge, I had the right composition, the right amount of shadows and light in the gorge. The river was still in shadow, but reflecting some morning light, and just really grabbed me. And that's what I wanted to paint from that day.
So something that's also really sort of popping into my mind about this particular painting is this fun exaggeration of the horizon line. It's almost, well, when you said you did some cartooning. So this is almost like, it reminds me of that New Yorker cartoon with like Manhattan. And then there's like this just way off somewhere. There's like maybe Kansas is out there and maybe LA is out there. And and it's almost like you do, just with this exaggeration of, the horizon line.
Right. And part of it is just the fact that I find curves more aesthetically interesting than straight lines. But also, as you'll see in the other there's a small painting that we still have in the show of the gorge, not from this site, but from along the West Rim Trail. And it's called, Into the Rift.
Darn.
It's got an even more exaggerated, where'd it go? There it is.
Hey, hang on. Okay. Into the Rift. Let me grab.
Yeah, it's got an even more exaggerated curvature, where what in reality is this flat, high plane that dramatically gives way very suddenly to the gorge, anywhere from 600 to 800 feet deep. It's very flat, but I find it a lot more interesting to add this exaggerated curve. And one reason I do that with this subject is that the Rio Grande Gorge, it's not just the work of water erosion, it's a rift gorge where two tectonic plates pulled apart, and then the Rio Grande, being an opportunistic river, just kind of flowed into the gap between the two. So when I think of the geologic forces, just tearing the earth apart there, to me, it seems like, well, gosh, it was so powerful, it's probably pushing up. And I thought the exaggerated curvature was a way to visually depict that in sort of what I hope is a fun way.
Yeah, for sure. And this one too, Canyon Cuts the Mesa as well. Once again, and I love these, in these small ones. I'm going to pull this one up too, because I just always think it's so much fun to see brushstrokes with an artist who works this way, because they're just these snips of color And when you really kind of get your face right in there, it's like, oh, wow, that's like really purple and chartreuse. And, but it just makes for a really joyful painting.
That's what I'm going for. Plus, it also has the directional gestural element to it. So it's not just color and shape, but it adds a little movement because you can see how I was working and which way I was pulling the brush.
When you kind of put the warms and the cools together to just really kind of keep a person's eye in the painting and circling around. So it's interesting because there are some really iconic things about Taos that have been painted and photographed. We've all seen them for 100+ years, right? So, and I think this is one of them, to talk about, because as an artist, how do you make it your own? So how do you make something your own?
Well, I try to interpret what I see rather than just documenting is exactly as it is. And I guess that's one reason why I don't do plein air, because plein air to me is great at capturing just a fleeting glimpse, a moment, whereas I take hundreds and hundreds of photos, come back, and I remember the moment, and I want to interpret it and kind of convey the way it made me feel. So that's more the expressionistic quality, the way I use color, the way I have fun with the shapes, and the way I bring out as much movement as I can, even going beyond what was literally present in the scene. So I hope that's making it kind of a personal, unique take. That's what I'm trying to do.
So I want to touch back on, and this is really me, like Rio Grande Morning. And for some reason, your paintings, like I hear music with them for some reason. Do you listen to music when you paint?
Sometimes, other times, and this is kind of pedestrian, I hate to admit it, I'm listening to NPR News. Which that doesn't sound very artistic. So, but full disclosure. But other times I will be listening to classical music. It's often classical choral music because I like to sing. I'm in a choir. But yeah, definitely I could see the movement and all the curvilinear shapes. I could definitely see that having a musical element, quality to it, the flow.
And also, okay, I'm just gonna toss this out because it's getting close to Christmas, but it sort of has this Seussian, Dr. Seuss kind of.
I could see you saying that with when I have fun with individual trees, like the trees in the foreground here. Maybe a little bit. And I just love it when I can capture some cirrus clouds that are these wispy strands. Those have a very whimsical element that I enjoy playing with.
Yeah. Okay, so I am going to stop the screen share. Thank you very much. Don't go away. I know artists are always like, can I bolt? Can I bolt now? No, you can't bolt. Okay, Carmel Timmons, welcome.
Hello.
Hello. So let's see, how long have you been in the show now, Carmel? Long.
This will be my 18th year.
I was gonna
2004.
say, wow. Yeah. So Carmel is one of our only pencil artists. Sometimes you are our only pencil artist, but every so often I do have artists who will bring in drawings. Like Don Cohen this year has charcoal drawings, and let me see. Oh, one of our photographers has a really big charcoal drawing. David Beckham and sorry, David Beckham. No, we don't have the soccer player in our Andrew Beckham. Seriously, can you imagine? But you are really consistently the drawer of our audience or of our stable of artists. And I'm wondering if you would tell me, and by the way, Cynthia Young, thank you for that. Lovely to hear Rick talk about his work. Yeah. And I didn't know that you sing in a choir either, Rick. So that's really cool. So Carmel, tell us about if you wouldn't mind, tell us about drawing and why drawing.
It's just something that I always have done. I started drawing in high school, and then, I did a little painting, I did a little oil, little watercolors, stuff like that. But I always just felt really comfortable with drawing from almost the beginning. I knew how to, I don't want to say I knew how to do it. I mean, there was a process, but I just am comfortable with it. And so but now I feel like, and I talked about this last year in last year's talk, and I actually have started doing a little more painting. So I'm doing it in my spare time.
Yeah.
I don't,
I love it.
But it's going fairly well. It's a total learning curve, but I will always draw, because that's my first love. It's what I'm comfortable with. But sometimes comfort is not what artists should always be doing. Sometimes it's good to mix it up a little bit, literally.
Yeah.
So.
So two things that are coming to mind for me. One, I mean, our audience, you have such a dedicated following after 18 years with the show. I mean, really, like, it's just people absolutely adore your work. And, it's always, to me, so it's fun to talk about your work. It's also what I also love to tell people walking through the show is that pretty much every artist in this show can draw like that, or can draw, right? Can draw. And that's your vision of what you draw and how you bring things out. And we're going to screen share and really talk about that. But drawing, so it's interesting because drawing is a basic skill. Rick was taught high school, and that was really like, you've got to really, if you want to be an artist, that's a basic skill. So, and here's my second thing. In when we were talking to Barbara Van Cleve, who does some color work, but she said, she made this comment that color is seductive, and color can take you in a direction that is something that she didn't want to do. And she really liked how she could focus in on the emotion and what she was trying to communicate. So
That makes sense.
Yeah. So to take this skill, and it is really part of the craft is drawing, is knowing your tools, right?
Right.
But to take it and elevate it, that's what I want to talk to you about in this work. And I want to talk a little bit about where you're going as you paint and are using color, and how that's informing this new work. So I'm going to screen share and pull this up. So yeah. Yeah. The waiting room.
The waiting room.
So let me ask you this. Your work is, you find out there some of the most iconic Western things, and you twist them a little bit, you make them your own. Talk about this one. Where did this come from?
This was one of my favorite pieces that I've done in quite some time. But this is every year we get invited to this family's ranch to go to a branding that they have. They have a huge lot of cattle, and they brand every spring. And well, I don't know, every spring. But I was, and you have to get up ungodly early, and I go, and I don't help. I'm not allowed to help because I'm not, I have other skills. And but Jeff, Jeff, he helps, and I go with my camera, and just like Rick was talking about taking hundreds and hundreds of photos. I go and I just try to attempt to get sort of some information, just try to, I'm not necessarily looking for the exact next drawing, but, information. And so I was standing, next to all the action, and I turned around and I looked, and there's this mama cow, and she's waiting for her baby to come through, and who's getting hits 10 seconds of hell, getting branded and all these things, and she's just waiting for him, and I just thought that was a really powerful scene, because there's it's smoky, it's dusty. These horses are all over the place. There's cows bellowing everywhere. And I just thought she had this really amazing, intense look. And she's looking right at me, like, like I had anything to do with it, but I didn't, And I just really wanted to capture that. And I knew immediately that would be a drawing that I would do.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so tell us about this, because, you do take great photos and you could probably just switch to photography, right? Right.
Oh, I
No, I'm
laugh
kidding.
because you should see all the mistakes. I mean, I really don't know how to use my camera. I know what I want. I know how to try to, do this, but I push the button and, but thank you. That's nice of you to say.
So that's probably a thing though, right? Like you probably don't want to get too good at photography.
No,
Yeah.
because to me, to me, the part that's a tool, just like my pencil is a tool, so I just want it to be, help me get to where I need to go, but I want my artistic vision to come through. I'm not really just drawing a photograph. I'm drawing what I see and how I see it. And, and yes, it's realistic, and yes, it's black and white and all that, but that's just the way I use that as a tool.
Yeah. So in this one, I think your work is always really mesmerizing because of the detail you put in there. And so I'm going to clarify something that I know artists in the Coors show can draw. I also know that to take it to this level requires a real dedication and something about you and your ability to focus and your patience in that. And I'm wondering if you would kind of talk about that, because I think that's part of your development, because I know over the last 18 years, this is your subject matter. You're a horsewoman, and you are an out in the country woman. And, I know you and Jeff are out hiking and packing and doing all that, whatever you're doing out in Mother Nature. But when you come back inside the studio and really create these things, how do you get into that mindset to really focus and concentrate?
I do tend to think about, okay, so in this scene, I came home, and for 2 days, all I could smell was smoke and dirt. And it took me 3 days to wash the hair out, the dust out of my hair. And so I think about these things when I'm drawing, and I'm happy to, after a day like that, where I'm just exhausted, I'm happy to get in the studio and just sit and work. But I am reflecting back on those experiences and trying to I don't even know how that works, but I'm trying to put that into the drawing, so that people can feel that maybe as well. That's my thought process, but it's, it does take a lot of focus. It's hard to go from being outside, moving around and interacting and things like that, to just sitting there and making myself focus all my energies onto this paper, so it is a bit of a transition. I've gotten better at it over the years. There's times when I, one little distraction and I'm popping up and, heading over to finish my load of laundry or whatever, so it's something that I think all artists struggle with a little bit,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because it is sort of that dichotomy that, to do this work, it takes a high level of creativity. But to keep your body in front of the easel, or your butt in the seat, in the saddle. But
I love it.
Yeah, right. I mean, you know what I mean? Like to keep at it.
Especially when it's really tedious, when you're doing something like, okay, the rope, that's probably some of the more tedious bits of a scene that I'll do. But, it's hard to sit there sometimes. It's, but then other times time will fly. It'll go by in a flash, and you won't even know where the whole day went.
Right.
So it's funny.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's when your significant other wanders in with a plate of food and right.
I just need to teach him how to make coffee. That's
yeah.
He still refuses.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. He has other qualities, I'm sure. Humor. So I want to talk about, and you know what, I kind of want to pull this one up. All play, no work. And this idea of cropping, how do you decide on, we've got a partial hand and a knee and the rope, and the focus is on the horse. Well, you didn't have to put anyone on the horse at all. Like, talk about how you've developed your sense of cropping the story.
It's something I end up playing with a lot. And, we have these amazing tools at our disposal now, rather than doing little thumbnail sketches or whatever. Sometimes it's easier for me, especially if it's a bigger piece that I'm going to be doing, to put it on the computer and just start cropping things and, getting a sort of a clearer visual. And sometimes it's totally by accident. I'll have one way I'm going to do it. And then halfway through the drawing, I'm like, no, I think this is going to be a stronger composition. And so it's, I do like focusing on the horse, and I don't like, I used to draw people a long time ago, and I really feel like, I don't know, I like it to be a little more generic. I mean, everybody's seen a horse that looks like that, and, but I don't want to have, Bob, whoever in the drawing, the drawing as well. And just because I just like the idea of the horse more than the guy, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it definitely makes sense. And so Wandering, this is one of your smaller works that's in the show. And was this, I'm just kind of guessing this is probably one of your neighbors.
It is before we got started today, I was looking around going, every single drawing I did is from this very little area, and that's just some people that have a really cool ranch just 5 miles from here. And I get a call from my friend who's friends with them as well, and says the babies are out. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's so much fun. I get to grab my stuff and we go out there and, just wander around taking pictures of, and just, and loving on them and petting them and, just trying to, it's just such a great day. That's just one of my favorite kind of days as an artist, is to go out there and really interact with, these gorgeous, beautiful creatures.
Wow.
Yeah.
So something that I think is really important but interesting with, especially someone, a pencil artist, and I think people just say, well, you just erase it, but there are marks you make, right? Yeah, you're shaking your head. There are marks you make that do not come up. And so you really do have to kind of proceed with a pretty strong concept idea in mind, right?
Yeah, especially the pencil that I use, which is a combination of carbon and wax, and in certain degrees of intensity, it does not erase very well. So if I really made a big mistake, I'd have to start over, or do a really intense background, or something like that. But luckily that's only happened once or twice, and I really try to have a solid idea of what I'm doing before I put it to paper.
So I also want to just bring up one more thing, and then I'm gonna bring Brad Overton in. But I think it's easy to concentrate on the the image and the drawing, but a big part of what you're doing falls in the space, the negative space, and is what you leave out. And I'm wondering if you would kind of talk about the backgrounds a little bit, which is not the sexiest thing to talk about, but it's really vital, right? In drawing.
It can be, yeah. And I think every drawing has its own idea of how it should look. You're showing the bison, that's from Yellowstone, and the background was this Yellowstone Lake, I think he was sitting in front of. And I just certain things require a background. Certain things are, to me, are a little bit more subject driven, where I'm just trying to focus on the animal. And it really sort of depends on what's going on, which is what I end up doing. And I think that's why I like the waiting room so much, because it doesn't really have a background, but it has a lot going on. And so instead of being just completely subject, and then sometimes I'll do that gray background because the white is just too much. And especially when something's backlit, I want to make sure that you can tell it's backlit, like the little, fuzzies on the mane.
Here. Yeah. Wow. And again, it's just really fun to get this close into the work. And, the way it is on my screen is much bigger than the actual drawing. So it's really a lot of fun.
Yeah, all the little hairs. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Sure.
all that stuff. And then you capture the mood too. I mean, you really know, obviously your technique, but you also know how to really draw us in and strike a mood, in my mind, I think.
I hope so.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so stay put.
Okay.
Heading over to Brad Overton. Hi, Brad.
Howdy,
How are ya?
I'm doing really well.
Good.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm actually doing great. I'm doing really well. Yeah,
Fun.
yeah. I'm just ignoring the fact that Christmas is just a few days away and I've done nothing. I haven't even.
I can't even believe it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I
boy.
know. Yeah, and I actually what I
Over
spent,
soon.
you know what I spent the most time in is coming up with excuses for why. So it's not been productive over here.
For why?
Yeah.
First album.
So, Brad, I wonder if you would talk a little bit about your background, and then I'm going to do a screen share, but your work, it's it's hyper realism, it's kind of trompe l'oeil, it's like these really, they just have these really, there's whimsy to them, there's probably some metaphor to them, there's just a lot of cool stuff going on with the work. Would you tell us about your background and what that brings to the work we've got today?
Well, my background, like, you mean like school or childhood or what? What are we talking? What's my background? You mean my artistic, my career background?
Yeah, talk about, because okay, obviously, like the other two artists on this call, you
Yeah.
got the chops, right? You know your medium, drawing, you know all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
What you're bringing to this, and again, when I'm looking at the composition of a show, curating a show, I need artists to have their own voice.
Okay.
Right? How did this develop? It's, there's like a kind of a sense of whimsy, but theater to it as well.
But theater?
Yeah.
Boy, that's interesting. Okay. Well, and okay. Drawing was something I always did, drawing and painting and sculpting. And my mom was an art major and a really very talented artist, and still is. I mean, she's doing watercolors that are really, really weird, cool paintings. My dad's kind of a hard bitten. I don't know what he is. He's a talented writer. But my folks didn't pursue creative careers because they were busy with the 6 kids, and so it's an eclectic family. I've got a brother who's a filmmaker, sculptor, photographer, and an MD. He's a doctor.
Oh my God.
Oh God, he's kind of an overachiever.
Overachiever.
Yeah, he's wild. And then I've got another brother who's a painter who's incredibly good, and I've got a sister who does triathlons, and another sister who just has horses and makes she's got like a skincare she's an entrepreneur.
Oh my God.
But it's a good group, and I think that for me, I was the oldest of those 6, and so my job was to keep stirring the pot. I was kind of an explorer, a cultural explorer in the family. So I was first into, animation, and I started doing drawings and trying to be funny with animated drawings as a kid. And then I went to California one summer. So we were riding horses in Montana sometimes. I had kind of a crazy grandpa. We were riding horses in Montana sometimes, and then we were surfing in California, and then we were exploring in Mexico and Arizona, because he was always into some big project and would want the grandkids to come for the summers, and we would do that. so we kind of got from him a sense of adventure and that we could just kind of go for whatever we wanted to try.
Wow.
I got into punk rock and started a band, and I couldn't hang. It was like not for me. The touring part of it I couldn't do, but the band did real well and toured Europe 3 times. And
Oh my God.
yeah, I know, it was pretty cool. So I've got this kind of do-it-yourself ethos, and
Yeah.
I decided I wanted to be an artist in like 5th grade, and I always drew and painted, and I got into music for a little while in high school, and I got into theater. I won all the drama meets in the state. I did Shakespeare, and I did a little theater, and I was in the opera training program when I was doing a double major in opera and in art.
Wow.
And I just didn't like opera.
Really?
I had a good singing voice, but I didn't want to be an opera singer.
Wow.
And I just decided I'd rather, I don't know. I just got more, I just tried everything until I really realized, as it all shook out, that I really enjoyed time in the studio and I just wanted to paint.
Wow. Wow.
I like
So
to
I'm gonna,
I like to paint and I like to sculpt, and we've got a sculpture in the show this year.
yes, you do. We're
Yeah.
gonna talk about that.
Yeah. So I just kind of live like a pirate.
Yeah.
I just do whatever. I've done a lot of different jobs. I was a set designer and a scenic artist for some feature films and commercials before my paintings started selling fast. And anyway, but somebody really close to me said something very insightful to me about the paintings I'm doing right now. And that was that there's a feeling about them that's real, but there's a blurry line between what's real and what isn't. And she had the insightful part was that life's that way,
Yeah.
and then I kind of thought, well, gosh, our mythology in the West is truly that way. Is on the one hand, we have the mythology and the story that we all feel internally and know, as that we learned as children, and we play that way. We experience the landscape that way, and we've all traveled around the West and seen the little towns, and we know the history, and the history's everywhere. But the mythology around it, like what part of that, what's real and what isn't,
Yeah.
So
That, okay, we're going to do a screen share because that's exactly what I want to talk to you about with your work.
Okay.
And so, when I'm talking to artists, and I'm just a real pain in the butt about this, because I love to know all that stuff. I love to know about your crazy grandfather. I love to know, because I feel like, everybody's work and what you do and compose and bring out to the world is really just self-portraits, right?
Yeah.
In a way, it's just kind of a deep reflection of you, and what you're thinking about and working on, and even your past. And so, to talk about your grandfather and this, hey, you can do anything attitude, which it sounds like all 6 of you embraced, right?
Yeah, nobody's ever had a job.
Well, that's what they say, right?
I take that back. I got one brother who he's the boss. He has a tech company, but I guess he's the closest one. He goes to work he wears a suit.
Oh my gosh. But it's like it's that saying, right? Do what you love and you won't work a day of your life.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, and then there's this mythology of the West, which when I first saw your work, and I reached out to you, and I kind of, really pursued you to get your work in the show, because as a curator of a Western art show, I really wanted to put this in front of people to really think about, what are these things that we all grew up with? What is this mythology we grew up with in the West? And so here you are using these toys, which I understand you've got hundreds of in your collection.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they're all over.
And then you're
They're in the
creating these,
house, they're in the studio.
I love it. And so
Yeah.
you're creating these scenes, these tableaus, this, you know, these
There's a little
little.
theater in them. There really is. There really is, and it hadn't occurred to me until you said that.
Mhm.
But those are backdrops for plays in a way.
So, yeah, see, I actually do pay attention to y'all.
Very insightful. You're a great curator.
So this is, I love this story, and we were talking about this before I turned on the record, but with Brad's work, and this happens all the time. I was given a tour a couple weeks ago of the show, and we stopped at your work, and she just finally came up to me and she's like, I know this is stupid, but I have to go and look down the side of that painting just to make sure.
Yeah, that's the greatest compulsion.
Yeah.
I've seen a few people do that, and it's my favorite.
It's so amazing. It's so awesome.
That's the thing. It's like, did I trick you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You did. Okay. And so curatorially putting together a show, and working with this extremely talented bunch of artists who you all are doing your own thing. And I'm so grateful for that, because you come with this new work and new thoughts and new ideas and new ways to look at the world. And Brad, what you're bringing, by making these paintings are so fun and joyful. Like it's sort of like, I'll be talking to people about stuff and they're constantly doing this, like, and then they're like kids. And I'm finally like, do you want to go over there? Should we go over there? And, it's really fun. And that's sort of, to use that word that came up earlier, it's the seductive part, right? And so here you have these really fun, with this trompe l'oeil thing going on, and you pull us in, and then we start to ask questions. And I'm wondering if you would talk about, I want you to talk about some of the ideas behind the work and what you're thinking about as you're doing it and how they come together. Let's start with the hammer of the gods.
Hammer of the God by Led Zeppelin. I mean, it's all tied to pop culture and the music I grew up listening to, and I use song titles for a lot of the paintings, and so that's the reference, is the Led Zeppelin song. To me, it's simply, I went to art school and I learned all the, the rules of composition and color theory, and did that for a long time. And that's so on that level, that education gave me the tools to be able to create what I wanted to. And for me, what was the question again? I'm trying to say, what was the question again exactly? I'm sorry.
I would love for you to talk about, like, how did this painting in particular come together? How did you decide to tape these things to the wall, or what? How did this come together?
Well, I mean, I started doing the paper sky paintings a couple of years ago when I had a large minimalist piece, and I needed to. It was driving me crazy, and I wasn't satisfied. And then I just remembered that I had this goal years ago where I wanted to be able to create a 3D illusion on a 2D surface. And I specifically wanted it to be a realist painting with depth. but then something else on the surface of the paint, you know? And I was unable to achieve it. And this was maybe 15 years ago. And then I suddenly remembered that had been a goal. And because I'd worked at it and I failed and I didn't like what I came up with. It didn't look like the idea that I had in my head. I wasn't able to translate it onto the canvas. And so when I had this, and what I had was a canoe, an Indian in a canoe, he's a lead toy.
Yeah.
And he's down there paddling, and it looked like it was cool. It was like a good painting, but there was a space at the top that, to me, I was like, I just don't feel like I did a good job in this painting. The composition feels weird. And I pulled out some paper and I cut out a cloud and I cut out a lightning bolt. And I thought that was funny. I taped it up and I'm like, oh man, if I paint that, that's cool. Like, wow, and I thought, well, let's turn it into a whole storm. And then pretty soon I had this whole storm system happening on the canvas. And, I just like traced around it, took a picture of it, put it up on the monitor, and I got to work on it. And I was laughing so hard, just like I was like, this is the best. This is so funny.
Wow.
Because, it's a toy and I've been painting toys. And now the toy energy has summoned me into that reality. And now I'm playing with the toy in the painting. It's like on so many levels, hilarious things were happening. And I just really enjoyed it. And I've, honestly, I just get a kick out of them. And humor is it's big to me. That's kind of, that's my favorite. I mean, that piece is a little heavier.
Which one?
This one you just put up. I just think that's
Yeah. Oh yeah.
that's just such a trip. Let me see if I have the book around that has yeah, hold on a second. I've got a book about that.
And while you're looking this one up, it's kind of in an interesting way.
Let me show you what I did there. It's pretty crazy. You're gonna laugh.
Okay. I'm gonna stop the screen share and come back to your.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
You see that?
Oh, yeah.
Go back to the picture. Bring up the painting again.
All right. Let me bring up the painting again. Here we go. Yeah. So you used
the moon and the horizon are the same as in the Moreau. This is a drawing, an ink drawing by Moreau. It's untitled. And it just, and I was going through this book. I go through art history books all the time. And I was looking at it and I was just blown away by this simple, bleak composition. It kind of had sort of an existentialist vibe that reminded me of The Stranger, by Camus. So I was thinking about that. And then I even put on that Cure song and listened to The Stranger by Camus.
wow.
Anyway, so I decided to do kind of a poppy version of that.
Yeah.
Except that that farmer who's walking off into the field in his own shadow at the same time, and the storm, all of that. There's sort of an inner conflict or encounter with the dark materials of the self, that I just thought. I mean, it's like, I don't know. But with the pink and blue and yellow and purple, I just thought it kind of made it like dark and funny at the same time.
Yeah.
I think life is very much like that.
Wow.
It's beautiful because we have all of the contrast. We have all the joy and all the pain. And
yeah.
I like to focus on the funny stuff. But it does help you to have those tools at your disposal when because life isn't always that way, but you can carry that energy with you, and it serves you well in the right circumstances.
Yeah. You know what? And again, I think it's there's something about your paintings too that I think that's so captivating for collectors and certainly for our audience, in that you kind of give people permission to laugh with the art, collectors can be really, or people just coming in to see the show can get really a little unnerved by art because people don't want to sound stupid or look stupid, right? And so,
My favorite thing to do.
so when they stand in front of your work,
Play the pool,
yeah, they
Yeah.
get to laugh, right?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about the sculpture because these are kind of new for you. And then I'm going to zip out and ask and open up the conversation to the three of you. But
Okay.
Sky Rider?
Yep.
Yeah. When did you start doing sculpture? When did you start really adding this in? It's a couple of years, right? A few years?
Yeah. I did a series of busts of Katrina Calaveras that I was approached by a foundry owner in Arizona who wanted to publish a series of sculptures of sculptural versions of my paintings. That it's a completely different series that I do of the Mexican Katrina Calaveras. I started doing those, and then I said, I got this other idea that I wanted to try. And he was into it. So I was able to have this foundry, they put up the money and made all this stuff.
Wow.
And I got to go down there and make some new friends and spend a lot of time in Prescott, Arizona.
Nice.
And the thing that, for a little while I was enjoying them. And then I thought, the backgrounds that I did initially weren't as cool as these are. So what I've had done is I have a friend whose name is Orlando Cruz, and he does cars. He paints cars, lowriders, and all kinds of just wild paint jobs. And I showed him the steel cutout clouds that I did, and I asked him if he'd use my colors that I wanted, and I had him custom paint the clouds for me.
Wow.
And man, it's really turned out cool. So yeah, it's just the sculpture is something that I've always wanted to get into, and I'll be getting more and more into it because it's just so fun. They've been pretty popular. So
yeah, they really just add now you can actually play with art. Yeah. Go ahead, play with art. Okay, done. So we just have a few minutes left, and what I'd love to do, and if you're listening and you have questions, throw them in the chat. Carmel, Rick, and Brad, I'd love to kind of turn it over to you now. And do you have questions or comments for each other? On your mark, it's like go.
I've got a question for Carmel, I guess. What's it like to suddenly pick up and move to northern Wyoming after all those years in eastern Colorado? And along with that, are we going to see a change in your artwork based on your relocation here?
It was, I feel like it was a really good move for us. I mean, Denver and Colorado has gotten a little bit bigger, and northern Wyoming is not so much big. It's a little tiny town, and, we just love it. It was, of course, a difficult move after 30 years in Colorado. It was not something I thought I would ever do. And my daughter still kind of hates me for it, but she'll, I go visit her a lot. But, because we're only 3 hours from Yellowstone now, we go to Yellowstone whenever we can. And so I have added wildlife and birds because I live on a pond. So I'm really kind of into these birds right now. And so there might be bird drawings and paintings later. So yeah, it has influenced my work. And going to the brandings and stuff too. I didn't really do as much of that in Colorado. I mean, even though I lived in sort of a ranchy area. But yeah, I mean, all in all, it was a very positive thing, and it's really beautiful here, and the people are really wonderful, and we're very lucky. So, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay, a couple minutes left. Anything?
Well, I want to ask Rick about the relationship his paintings might have to regionalism and the paintings of Thomas Hart Benton. And
I am a big fan of Thomas Hart Benton. I mean, he's a little more into the people.
yeah,
And my landscapes tend to be unpeopled. I'm leaving it to the viewer to place themselves or whomever in them.
oh, I
but,
love that perspective.
But I definitely love the playful character to the drawings behind his paintings, and I definitely have been influenced a little bit in that respect in my painting.
The rhythm of your pieces, yeah, I can definitely see it. I love it.
Because well, thank you. Yeah, because boy, he was a master of that. That's for sure.
Yeah. And on the
Yeah,
graphite, can I ask her one?
Go.
Your graphite, the drawings. Did you draw that subject as a kid?
No, my dad was in the Navy. And so we lived, I never really have been around horses until I got much older. So when moving to Colorado is what brought me into the sort of the Western world, and meeting certain people that, really lived that life and taught me a lot about that. Cause I didn't know anything about horses or cows or anything. And, then I ended up buying some horses and I really got into it. So it's, it wasn't my subject at all. I was drawing people a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah, you did say that earlier.
Yeah, but I do love animals. I don't know. It just seems to fit, especially now. So,
well, drawings finished drawings like that require such patience and discipline, and I think they're very beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, I love both of your work too, and I really love Thomas Hart Benton, and I didn't make that connection until he said that. So about your work, Rick. So that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I did not either. I'm now going to claim it was my connection, though. How I roll.
It's your show, Rose. You can own it.
Yeah. You guys are never around when people say, "Oh, Rose, this is a great show," and then I just go ahead and say, "Yeah, I painted it all myself." I love the people who look at me like, wow.
Really?
Like, I'm just going with it at this point.
Oh, man.
Hey, I want to thank you all for being here, Rick, Carmel, and Brad. This is just what a blast to hang out with you guys for an hour. And happy holidays. I hope you all have a lovely holiday season. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you in January for the show. And all of you who were able to hop on this call, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. And that's our hour.
Yep.
Change.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Rose.
you guys.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah.
You too.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Rose.
Bye.
Bye.